Welcome to RPA Family Gaming, where we talk about how to survive in the world's greatest adventure. Today, we have a very special guest. He's a father of 4, has been married for 19 years. He plays role-playing games and all sorts of tabletop games with his kids and everybody else. Welcome, Peter Green. Thanks, Peter. It's nice to be here. So, Peter, you just started a new YouTube channel after years of putting it off. Why don't you tell us about that? Yeah, so it's actually something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And this summer, my son Will approached me about it, and I thought, this could be a good thing. We'd been really struggling with the pandemic. The learning environment at school is not great, but learning at home can be a lot harder. And Will's job as a sweeper had then evaporated because he was working at the school. And I thought this could be a great opportunity to do some home learning and have a lot of fun together as a family. So when he approached me about helping him start a YouTube channel, I thought, he needs this. We all need this, and really, I think it's an opportunity for some better learning than you'd get in most classroom environments. What do you mean? Public education's fantastic. So, lecturing and a lot of what has become classic education really isn't very effective. People learn through all of their senses, and also I think one of the things that's really important is that people learn better through playing. Play is really important to learning. And learning and play in a social setting encourages even more learning. So elaborate on this idea of playing and learning. What's that all about? Sure, I have 3 boys, and I think this issue is particularly important for them because when boys are just sitting there listening, the blood flow to their brains kind of slows down and almost stops, and they basically quit learning. So they need excitement and real interest in something to wake them up and get their brain engaged again, and fun does that. And for both boys and girls, when you have a positive attitude, you tend to learn better. I felt like making videos would give Will a chance to have something he was really passionate about to work on, and give he and I an opportunity to work together on stuff, which is really cool. And creation and that sort of creative exploration really is just a form of play.
That's really fascinating. You mentioned that you've been interested in the idea of a YouTube channel for a long time. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I figured out pretty young that I didn't really like the hard sciences. I studied a lot of literature and art and marketing and those sorts of things. And I worked for a little while at an ad agency, but then I decided to take a job in property management with my dad. Not because it was exciting or glamorous, but because it was stable. And the problem with stable is that it gets to be kind of boring. And it didn't take me too long to realize that I really missed writing and a lot of other creative activities in my life. And my wife and I like to joke that I started my midlife crisis 10 or 15 years early. And so I'd had a taste of video editing when I was younger, and I thought, video editing could be a way to bring together all of these different creative activities that I like together into one hobby. You said you started your midlife crisis more than a decade ago? So why did it take you so long to get to YouTube? Basically, I had a young family, and that takes up a lot of time and money. You mentioned bringing all of your interests together. What are some of your other interests? Stories, all kinds of stories. So how did your crisis bring stories back into your life? Like a lot of guys my age, I think, I had given up playing role-playing games. It's kind of it's not something adults do. And I was kind of embarrassed about it, and I missed it, but I just, didn't seem like the thing to do, and my wife wasn't into it. But one of my friends recommended the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons when it came out, and so my dad actually got it for Will for his birthday. And what's funny is I think I actually enjoyed reading the book more than he did.
Why do you think you enjoyed it so much?
So I think the reason I liked it so much is because it gave me back so much of what I'd been missing in life. I got to read. I got all kinds of different stories. I got to do it with my friends. I got to do it with my kids. I got to write, but I didn't have to write dialogue, so it was a lot more fun writing. It inspired me to start drawing again, which I hadn't done for a long time. It just it kind of had everything, and I think a lot of things like books are pretty solitary. Movies are a little more social, but not really. But like role-playing games, I think nothing satisfies the urge to sit around a campfire and tell stories like role-playing games does. It gets to this really primal urge, this really primal need that we have as people to tell stories as a group together with your friends, with your family.
So how does YouTube figure into all of this?
So I got back into YouTube because I was not a great GM, and I knew I was not a great GM. And YouTube's a great place to go for like do-it-yourself stuff. And I figured it'd be a good place to learn how to do this. And so I discovered Critical Role and Matt Mercer and Satine Phoenix and and Adam Coble and Dan DeFazio and Matt Colville and all these great GMs. And they had all these good videos on GM tips and actual plays and all of these things where I could go and I could learn. How does a GM deal with this situation? Or how does a GM deal with that problem player? Or what's a good way to tell a story? And how is this different from writing a book or other types of storytelling? And so there was all this great material on YouTube, and I just kind of dove into it, and I loved it. I gobbled it up.
So if gaming was meeting your social and creative needs, why YouTube? Was it just for Will?
Yeah, so Will was definitely the catalyst. But I think it goes back really to my core values.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess it's kind of because I'm a family guy, right? I'm from Utah. Big families are a thing here. It's baked into my culture, into my religion. It's baked into my own personal life, and with my kids and my wife. It influences how I play games and what kinds of games I play. So I really think family. It kind of boils down to family. So when I was looking for actual plays to watch, I discovered Critical Role, and the problem with Critical Role, despite it being a great show, is that there's a lot of questionable content. I mean, right out of the gate, the very first episode, there were some things that are kind of shocking for a younger audience, for a family audience, and then throughout the whole show, there's a lot of foul language.
I can see how some of that content would be inappropriate, especially for kids.
It's kind of funny because I think a lot of the GMs in that Hollywood gaming scene are really sensitive to their players and to the content of their games and to what might trigger a player, and they build in a lot of moral decision making into their games and things that I think are really, really good and valuable. But on the flip side, the Hollywood culture that they're steeped in is something that a lot of people find kind of questionable. And things, at the end of the day, they're targeted towards, I think, more of an adult audience. And a lot of things that are appropriate for their intended audience may not be appropriate for a lot of other audiences.
You obviously had concern about some of the content. So what then?
So I wanted something that I could feel better about consuming. I really wanted something that I could feel better about sharing with my family. And what I found when I got looking was a gaping hole in terms of kids' content when it came to Twitch and YouTube. There really just wasn't much out there.
So it sounds like you intend to change that.
Absolutely. That is exactly the sort of content that we want to create.
So when you say younger audience, what do you mean?
I think it depends a little bit on the game and the kid and the game master, right? Everybody's a little bit different, but I think for the right game and the right kid, you can play as early as 4 years old, maybe give or take a little bit.
So we can expect to see content for kids that young?
Yes, definitely. I think a lot of our videos early on are probably going to skew towards that younger audience just because it's a little easier to prep the stories, a little easier to shoot the videos, there's a little less editing involved. And I think also there's a lot of talent available in our community that is well suited to those types of games.
Any spoilers?
I think the line between gaming and storytelling can be kind of blurry sometimes, and there are a lot of really good authors and storytellers in Utah, and so I want to kind of tap into that culture and combine it more with the gaming and put it on YouTube.
Well, we look forward to it.
Thanks. Yeah, so do we. And yeah,
Cool.
And thanks for having me on your show.
We're really excited about it too.
Yeah, so thanks so much for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
What are you doing?